Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are playing as the Dark Elves against the Norskins on Summersong, and this is the last faction that I think got a pretty major buff or adjustments this last patch, with the addition of the Kharybdiss. And look at this pretty little thing, look at it, it's so cute! Look at him! Oh, I don't even know what the hell that is. It's disgusting. I don't know. Either way, the Kharybdiss and Helibron is finally supposedly fixed. At least her cursed blade is now supposed to work correctly. It has a 10-second cooldown. It only does 144 damage per tick. Still, it might be pretty potent. I'm not entirely sure. Regardless, I did want to give her a shot because I have not tried her since release, and so really wanted to try out. Regardless, for this build, Helibroken is very, very expensive. She costs about 3,000 in this format. So I do have her on her altar on her. I'm not even sure. This isn't like a Cauldron of Blood, is it? Yeah, no, she is standing above some blood. So I guess on her Cauldron of Blood. She is, of course, fully kitted, or I think mostly kitted out. She does have the Blood Shield of Cain. She does have the Cursed Blade, Amulet of Dark Fire, providing some magic resistance. She has Fury of Cain to buff allies with. She does have Witch Brew, Heroic Killing Blow, which is a monstrous self-buff to AP and weapon damage, and then Gaze of Cain, which is the, as some YouTubers have called it, the Murder Party, which gives all nearby allies extra leadership, weapon damage, and melee attack, as well as rampage. So really, really potent stuff there. And of course, she herself is no pushover in melee either. She obviously on the chariot, she isn't going to be doing crazy amounts of damage to single targets, but she does still have a bonus versus infantry, AP, monstrous melee attack, and poison. So it's really no pushover. Plus a lot of HP. And causes fear, terror, got 24% physical resist with that blood shield, magic resist up to 47%, and missile resist up to 25%. So she is an absolute beast. Alongside her, we do have a sorceress of fire on a horse. Nothing too fancy here. She's got Flaming Sword of Ruin, she's got Cascading Fire Cloak, Burning Head, and Piercing Bolts of Burning. Kind of ready to adapt to whatever my opponent might bring, but I did figure that, you know, fire's pretty good against Norsca. Plus, I really wanted to do sort of a Roid Rage charge with Flaming Sword of Ruin, providing additional buffs. She also does have the Dark Star Cloak, providing improvements to power recharge rate. And against some Norscan units, especially ones that are susceptible to fire, like Skin Wolves, with the Lore of Fire, we're going to be hitting for, I think we're going to have like plus 47% bonus between Kindle Flame and their disadvantage, or their Malleus to fire there. In the back, we do have a single unit Dark Riders screening. Our infantry line is pretty trash. It's a 4 Blackheart Corsairs and the Blades of the Blood Queen, who are providing additional physical resist for Helibron here. Of course, these guys are absolutely beastly in melee, but they are very expensive at 1,500. They've got Frenzy, they've got... I don't actually think they've got that much compared. They've got Guardian and they've got Frenzy. That's their main selling point. Regardless, they're very powerful. Look at them. They're pretty crazy. I don't know. But I think they sync very well with Grown Helibron. And then our anti-large component, 2 Kharybdiss, or Kharybdii, would it be Kharybdii? I don't know. But 2 Kharybdii. Each of them is actually pretty crazy. They got Fear and Terror. They've got bonus versus large of 25. Melee attack is a base is 55, so that's really solid. That means against large they've got 80 melee attack. That means they're hitting basically everything. They got 500 weapon strength, AP. Not good melee defense. They're very squishy. They're much like Hydras in that sense. They're pretty trash, and as far as survivability is concerned, they're arguably even worse because they don't have regen. But they do also have this Abyssal Howl, and they don't have a breath attack, but they do have Abyssal Howl, which does provide a AoE -8 leadership debuff, which could be okay against Norsca. Regardless, my opponent did decide to go with a bit of an interesting build here. He's got Norscan Ice Wolves on the periphery, ready to dive backline that does not exist. His front line is composed of a mix of Marauder Champions and Marauder Champions with great weapons, as well as the Brutes of the Hound. So pretty elite. Marauder Champs did get a buff this past patch. They're not the Marauder Champs with great weapons. These guys are really crap right now. These guys really need a buff. But regardless, they can definitely tear through Blackheart Corsairs efficiently. They are backed by Familiar Warriors, the Miststalkers here. Ace Shaman Sorcerer of Death with Fate of Buna and Spirit Leech. Wolfrake is in here somewhere, mounted on a horse, coming in with Hunter of Champions, Sword of Torgald, Fight or Die, and a Sea Fang. So good selection there. And then 2 armored Skin Wolves, one of which is the Maws of Savagery, so AP anti-large. And I think Skin Wolves might actually be decent against the Kharybdiss, honestly, because it doesn't have very good melee defense or armor, so they'll probably be able to play a smackdown on it pretty hard. Regardless, the front lines are going to engage very quickly. My opponent hits my Blades of the Blood Queen with a Fate of Buna. Fortunately, they are being sheltered, at least somewhat, by One, it's been nerfed, but two, by the fact that they're near Crone Hellbron. So she's going to be helping them tank through that a little bit. And you can see already the buffs are going down, the murder party goes down. You can see the Maws of Savage here. I threw the Dark Riders in there. The reason I threw the Dark Riders in there is because they would provide a sort of meat shield for the Kharybdiss. And then the Kharybdiss with its flaming Sword of Ruin going down, it's got crazy buffs to damage against the Skin Wolves here. They've got like they're so weak against the poor Kharybdiss here, or the poor Skin Wolves are so weak against Kharybdiss here. So it's completely stomping him. Now, granted, it's losing a lot of HP in the process. It's getting torn apart. Like I said, the Skin Wolves will do a number on it, but it is doing monstrous work. These guys are falling apart. They rout. Both of them are going to. One of them is actually going to shatter here. They're getting pursued by the Dark Riders, so monster stuff. The rest of the fight, despite all their superiority, the Black Ark Corsairs, with all those buffs, even Marauder champions cannot hold. You can see they're being hit by that sort of by our sword effect. They're getting completely annihilated. They're actually going to tear out here, which is going to allow the Blades of the Blood, those units to push through. I did cast Witch Brew on Crone Hellbron, and you can see she's absolutely trashing even Wolfric here on a horse. And so really some rough stuff. Over here, the Kharybdiss, with a little bit of help, actually managed to rout off the... actually managed to really beat up on the Miststalkers and help rout off the Norsca Ice Wolves. And although my opponent did win the other flank very decisively, he has lost horribly on this end. And you can see the Maws of Savagery here were routing, but thanks to my opponent's good reaction here with the Ice Wolves, he snared these guys, slowed them down. They do get a nice charge here on the Maws of Savagery. They're going to reroute them, but my opponent actually almost got himself kind of saved there with the Ice Wolves. If he'd been a little more on top of the response there with the Maws of Savagery, he would have been able to dumpster my Dark Riders. Regardless, in the back, it doesn't really matter at this point. You can see Crone Hellbron, another Flaming Sword of Ruin going down, buffing all these guys, making them do so much more damage. You can see there's just an overload of traits on the Kharybdiss. It's got Poison, Magic, and Flaming attacks. And though it's not really meant to kill units like Marauder Champions, it's still going to do great work with its AP and Fear, Terror, its Abyssal Howl, and Poison, of course, debuffing these guys. And in come those reinforcements, of course, the Blades of the Blood Queen, Black Ark Corsairs, all these units just doing monstrous work here. And of course Hellbron just running amok among these guys and just trashing them. So really a pretty powerful and disgusting composition here. On the periphery, my opponent still has some troops, but really at this point it is basically game over. My opponent does manage to wrap up my Dark Riders, but not before they wrap up the Maws of Savagery, which leaves them with just these Norsca Ice Wolves and Fimir Warriors for a large component. Wolfric is basically a goner. I still have two Kharybdii at about half health apiece, a little over half health on one. So with that, this army is going to completely shatter. The Shaman Sorcerer of Death is going to get really messed up here. He's trying to flee, but with only 60 movement speed, I'm actually going to be able to catch him with the Sorcerer of Fire if needed. And I'm hoping this army completely shatters at this point. He's not going to keep fighting with the Brutes of the Hound, so he's going to GG out. So, for my opinion, I think... Okay, so a quick breakdown. I think Hellbron's really strong. Obviously, there you saw between the Murder Party, the Overcasted Flaming Sword of Ruin, but there was a lot of investments in that buffing and crumping through my opponent's front line there against those Marauder champions. So do keep that in mind. And Hellbron cost 3,000 gold. So while she was doing an amazing job there, while she was beating up on Wolfric, while she was beating up on these Marauder champions, providing huge buffs, that was a 3,000 gold hero, or lord. So you got to consider that. She's still very susceptible to range damage, even with all her missile Sorry guys, but even with her missile resistances and some physical resistance, she's still pretty susceptible to shooting. I do think she's still pretty susceptible to certain anti-large melee attacks in this format. I don't think she's a sort of kill-all hero. I do think that perhaps one of the things that might be a little too strong is her base missile resistance. That maybe should be a little lower. But besides that, she is incredibly, she's incredibly strong, but I think she is very pricey. So for 3,000 gold, I think it was pretty decent. She didn't get too many kills, but her buffs were absolutely invaluable. As far as the Kharybdiss, you can see they did ridiculous amounts of work, especially to the Skin Wolves who got annihilated, and to the Miststalkers. Probably with the Murder Party going down, the Kharybdiss was sitting at 100% chance to hit, or max chance to hit against the Skin Wolves, or close to it. With Flaming Sword of Ruin popped, to give him a bonus of fire damage, they are monsters. Now, I don't know how these guys would trade the same Mammoth. That might actually be a tough fight, but in these sorts of situations, they're a very strong anti-large unit. I don't think, versus any faction that has decent shooting, I don't think they're particularly good, because you don't have regen. Your Scaly Skin's decent, it's 35% missile resist, but it's not going to save you from just masses of shooting. And they are pretty expensive. They're still pretty specialized. They're not amazing against all comers. They're good against large. And they did really well against large, but they are pretty expensive. I'm not entirely sold on them, but I do think they're a cool unit. I definitely think they do have a place. They can definitely be used against factions that don't have too much shooting. I could see them being an absolute menace against, for example, vampire counts. Even there, maybe, for example, with Vargulfs, you might be able to shut them down, or not Vargulfs, Blood Knights. You might be able to shut them down, but regardless, I do think they're a pretty solid unit. I think they're pretty cool. The rest of the composition, pretty straightforward, blunt force army. I brought the Dark Riders mostly to skirmish with my opponent's backline. If he decided to bring any javelins or stuff like that, I wanted to shut him down at least for a little bit for the Kharybdiss. Blackheart Corsairs did okay, given that they were way outclassed, and the Blood Queen did okay as well. 39 kills honestly wasn't as much as I expected, but they did okay. For my opponent's build, honestly not bad against Dark Elves. I think the Marauder Champs are a mistake. I think you're better off bringing... to be fair, what I would do probably against the Dark Elves, even if they did bring Hellebron, I would probably risking Hellebron. I probably wouldn't bring Marauder Champions. I'd probably bring more Berserkers, and try to make. I'd probably bring a Fimir Balefiend to provide armor sundering. I don't think Lord of Death's strong, but honestly, the Fimir Balefiend, because it has got Arcane Conduit, and you can provide debuffs. You can bring, say, Withering to drop enemy armor, and it's armor sundering on its own. It means that you can hit 2 points on the line with armor sundering with the Fimir and the Fimir Balefiend, and you're debuffing the enemy armor that way. Then you hit him with a spell. You debuff him by another 30. You can drop, for example, Organized Executioners down to 40 armor, which is almost irrelevant. At that point, Berserkers chew through them incredibly quickly. So that is my take. That is what I would probably do. Definitely, you do need some anti-large to deal with Hellebron, the Kharybdiss. I'm not sure. To be fair, I'm not sure Skin Wolves with armor are worthwhile. I think that's kind of wasted against the Dark Elves, because the vast majority of their anti-large solutions are well armored, and in most situations you're probably just better off relying on their trying to think. You're better off just relying on their physical resistance and regen and be a little cheaper. That's my take on it. I don't really think you need the armor, but perhaps the armor piercing on the Maws Savagery is worthwhile. Regardless, good game to my opponent Aberon here. It was a very quick match, very decisive and blunt force and rapid, so I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. Hellebron is ridiculous. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. If you have any comments, any criticisms, anything like that, be sure to share them, and I will respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.